Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DiFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco, who has been making espresso machines by hand in Florence since 1927. That's almost 100 years of serving coffee shops globally. That is why it's a household name. La Marzocco is what we grew up with, and it's out there in some of the world's best coffee bars because of their dependability, beauty, and innovation. I love the PB, the Linea PB, the classic Linea style espresso machine with today's technology that allows your barista ultimate control over the extraction. They have the KB90 with the straight in locking portafilters and the scales built into the drip tray. They have many other types of machines that fit your situation exactly. Lever machines, full autos, semi-autos, etc. And La Marzocco knows that your style in your coffee shop is unique, and that's why they make these unique, dependable, innovative espresso machines. Go to LaMarzoccoUSA.com and check out what they have to offer. Or better yet, talk to a salesperson today at info@LaMarzoccoUSA.com. Email them and have a conversation. They'll get you hooked up with the right equipment for your coffee shop. And I highly recommend their equipment. I do so often with my clients. I think you're going to be super pleased whether you're starting out a coffee shop for the first time or you're scaling your business and looking for an upgrade for that second or third shop. La Marzocco means style, beauty, and peace of mind. Go ahead and visit them again over at LaMarzoccoUSA.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Espressly. Custom branded mobile apps are something that really help you stand out as a coffee shop. With Espressly, you're not just another dot on the map. When people want coffee, they don't have to sort through other competitors. It's just you on their phone, colors, logo, branding, menu. It's beautiful. Espressly is a no-risk model, no setup or development fees, integrates fully with Square, including the loyalty program the Square offers. You can do that through the app. Reach out to them today over at espressly.co to find out more information and have them get started on your app today. Again, that's over at espressly.co. Okay, everybody. Well, today we are going to be talking about how baristas can take criticism and feedback. And it is incredibly difficult to do this. It is so difficult. Not only is it difficult to take criticism, it's hard to give criticism, honestly. If you're a barista and you just became a manager and you are tasked with leading people, or you're an owner, any authority, and you've got to communicate something to someone, and it's not going to be fun. They're doing something that's just like, oh, I wish they weren't doing this. It is vexing. It is hard. It is a fearful thing. And we have an episode with Tom Henschel on how to deliver difficult feedback. So it's going to be the first link in the show notes. But what do we do when we get feedback that is difficult? How does it mess with our heads and our hearts? My heart hurts. You told me something that I don't like. And my tendency, I will tell you, I'll be vulnerable here. For a long time, the first thought I have in my head when somebody gives me criticism, and this is like younger Chris, not the now scar-tissued and I would dare say balder and wiser Chris, but was, well, how is this your fault, basically? Like the world, my boss, my coworkers, the cat across the street, I don't care what it is. Get it away from me. What is this culpability? What is this responsibility or ownership that I have to take over something? Because I fancied myself as being perceptive enough to realize that it was a multivariate problem. And not every time that I thought it was somebody else's fault was I wrong. Did they contribute to it? Yes. Okay. Well, then now what? What is the next step? Can I control them? No, not necessarily. Most of the time, no. In fact, a lot of times because they were my boss, I couldn't control them and I needed to do with what I had, what I could, right? And it would have been so much better for me in, hindsight's 2020 and I was young and all this other stuff. Not perfect about this now, by the way. 100% not perfect with this. It's just human nature, I think. Just throw it in that giant bucket called human nature. It's easy for us to assume that the bulk of the responsibility lies with somebody else. Well, if I was set up for success the way I was supposed to be set up, then I would have been successful. But then there's always going to be a story out there with somebody who had less opportunity, more constraints, but in the face of it, did more than you. and the excuses start to fade away. And so what we do is we start to build these bubbles. We build these affirmation bubbles where people are always high-fiving us. They're always telling us that we're kings and queens and that we're awesome and heroes, and other ways of describing us that are just so painfully saccharine sweet. It's like we know that it's just flattery. But we love it. It's like junk food. It's like soul junk food, emotional junk food. We'll take that blind affirmation based on nothing. We will, from our peers, especially when they tell us how totally right we are to be, as bitter as we have become. This happens not just with baristas, by the way. This also happens in owner communities where we start to hear owners talk about how these baristas are all terrible and et cetera. They just band together and we create these echo chambers that reinforce our confirmation bias, right? We've already got this confirmation bias and this reinforcement in our head. Now we need other people to tell us how much we're right. And then, you know what we're going to call this? We're going to call this a community. We're going to call this the barista community, whatever little group we have. And you know what doesn't happen in these communities? A lot of critique, holding people accountable, or even saying, they might be right. You are pretty harsh. You are pretty hard to read sometimes. Sometimes you are pretty lazy. We don't actually work with most of the people that give us the most praise, because the people that actually work with us know us. If they've closed with us, they've opened with us, they've gone to do an event where we weren't pulling our weight and we were just joking around to the POS while they're the one lugging all the Cambros and everything else. They understand now what it's like. They're like, man, I'm conflicted because this person's my friend, but they're not really performing the way they should. And then all of a sudden we start to feel this really icky feeling, do I sympathize with my manager? Do I empathize with my manager? Do I understand? And then when you become a manager, we become a trainer, you're like, oh my gosh, I do. I see now a little bit more objectively now that I have the mantle of responsibility to look out and see how I can help people stay great, become greater, and improve things that are not so great. I can see it more clearly. I would never have believed it, but here I am. And that's just the story of what it's like to start with just all this passion and this disbelief that we can do anything wrong, and not take criticism and use it as feedback for bettering ourselves as professionals. And then we wonder why we get passed up for promotions. Doing the same work as somebody else doesn't mean that you're doing it as well as they are, or that you have as good of an attitude doing it. Perception is a huge part of this too. Two people could be serving a customer and you say, I serve just as many customers as them. I pour just as good latte art. I do the closing list. I do what I'm supposed to do at my work, but I got passed up for a promotion to manager. And there's only one answer, and it's because the boss favorites this person. And is that really the case? Is that truly the case? Are you selling yourself short by throwing somebody else under the bus? Are you throwing yourself under the bus and saying, that you have no room for improvement? How are you supposed to get better if you can't identify any impediments to your professional development as opportunities for betterment? So you get passed up. First question that you should be asking is, why? What can I do to improve? Not why so that I can go online and complain about it and create some fictional narrative about how these people are out to get me, or how this person is just playing favorites because they like the way this person tells jokes, or even more nefarious reasons. So what we see often is, it's not my fault, it's somebody else that can't see my greatness. And the thing that we falsely assume is that we come out of the gate great. It's just not the case. I thought I was all that in a bag of chips. I got written up about not focusing on the condiment bar at a coffee shop I used to work in. And I was just like, almost I kind of felt that it's not my job, because I was really, focused on espresso and coffee. And isn't that a noble thing? This is a coffee shop, isn't it? And I'm focused on the most important thing. And couldn't you just say, we love how focused you are on the coffee? Well, now I could have said that. And I don't know, I can't even remember what I said, but I know I felt conflicted about it. But I needed to change my perspective, because somebody from outside of my own little bubble told me something that I can do better. How they delivered it, I don't remember. Maybe it was good, maybe it was bad. But when we sit there arguing about the way people deliver things to us, rather than taking what they deliver, don't take it personally and use it as an opportunity, what do they say? The best revenge is a life well lived. You can make way more professional progress if you start taking radical ownership over your performance and you get after it instead of quibbling about the delivery method or that people aren't readily identifying how great you are in other areas. And therefore, you almost like go on strike and you say, I'm not going to improve in these other areas until you tell me how awesome I am in these other ones. And as a result, you end up with all these baristas that are bouncing around from cafe to cafe 1 year, 6 months, year and a half, and they're just like not making progress professionally because they're not sitting long enough in a situation that's uncomfortable to grow past that uncomfortable feeling. They're just bouncing to another place, change of scenery. People don't know me. They don't know how I close here. It's a new life. It's like witness protection. And so don't fool yourself. Take the criticism. If it's bad advice or it's not true, then okay, no harm done, right? If it's true and you kind of know it, but you are a little bit incensed, now you know what you're up against is you and not your situation. Let's say that for sake of argument, you are in a situation where somebody is actively trying to keep you down, which is, I believe, and I will stand on this, way more rare than you will ever be led to believe by the people who claim that it's prevalent. Let's say that you're in that situation. Then you can move on. But you know the attitude and the disposition that you have going into it will be the thing that you bring with you going out of it. And if you're constantly looking for ways that people are going to offend you with criticism, rather than you looking for ways to apply that criticism to becoming better as a professional, you will never really improve. At best, what you'll find is sort of a dumbed down environment that will allow you in your arrested state of development to feel as though you're finally being recognized for the greatness that you have, when all the while what you just did was you avoided the growth and found a place that will allow you that middling performance. And it's not as satisfying, I'll tell you that much. I love the criticisms that I have got from the past. Today, I look back on some of the hardest moments of my career when people gave me harsh criticism. And I wish that I had taken more advice. I wish I had pursued more feedback. Give me more feedback. I don't know what I don't know. Even if I don't respect you as my boss, you can still see things that I can't see. And I want you to help me get better where I can, when I can in this situation. I really hope that you take this advice to heart because it'll mean the difference between what you're prepared to handle in way of opportunity in the future and whether you're even considered for opportunities in the future. Don't wait for the perfect boss with a perfect delivery system in the perfect cafe to give you the perfect advice before you become better. Take the imperfect and let it help your imperfections. And that's the key to success, I think. As somebody who's been around the block here a million different ways, when it comes to these improvements and critiques and doing it well and not well, believe me, it'll be worth it. So that's it for today. I hope that you found it helpful. Thanks again, and I will see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from keys to the shop.